Only 2 weeks after our wedding, my wife Olivia told me she needed closure with her ex-boyfriend before she could fully move forward with our marriage. I trusted her because I believed newlyweds should never begin their lives together with suspicion. She promised it would be a short conversation over coffee and nothing more. Instead, she disappeared for the entire weekend. When she finally returned, her excuses changed every few minutes, and the guilt in her eyes spoke louder than any words. That was the moment I realized our marriage had been broken almost as quickly as it had begun. Olivia insisted nothing serious had happened, but every answer created more questions than reassurance. Her phone suddenly had a new passcode. She avoided eye contact whenever I mentioned the weekend, and she became defensive over the smallest conversations. I didn't accuse her without evidence. Instead, I quietly paid attention. A few days later, a mutual acquaintance unknowingly mentioned seeing Olivia and her ex checking into a lakeside hotel together. My heart sank, but my mind became clear. I understood I could spend months chasing explanations or accept what the facts were already telling me. From that moment, everything inside me quietly changed. That evening, I calmly asked Olivia one final question. "Were you with him that weekend?" She stared at me for several seconds before whispering, "It was a mistake." Those 4 words confirmed everything. She admitted the meeting had turned into an affair and claimed it happened because she wanted to know whether she had truly moved on before committing to our future. Hearing that explanation hurt more than the betrayal itself. We had already exchanged vows. She wasn't deciding between 2 boyfriends. She had already chosen a husband, then walked away from that promise only 14 days later without hesitation. I didn't scream or throw anything across the room. Instead, I quietly packed a small suitcase and moved into a temporary apartment. Over the following weeks, I met with an attorney and began the legal process of ending a marriage that had barely begun. Olivia apologized every day through calls, messages, and handwritten letters, promising she would spend the rest of her life earning back my trust. I read every letter, but never argued. The affair wasn't a misunderstanding or an accident. It was a decision made after vows, rings, and promises. That truth never changed, no matter how heartfelt her apologies became. Months passed, and our divorce was finalized without unnecessary conflict. I accepted a promotion that required relocating across the country, giving me the fresh start I desperately needed. I focused on rebuilding my career, reconnecting with family, and creating a peaceful routine that no longer revolved around unanswered questions. One evening, almost a year after our wedding, my phone lit up with Olivia's name. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I've made the biggest mistake of my life. Please give me one more chance." I closed my eyes for a moment before quietly deciding how to answer her unexpected call. I took a slow breath before answering. "Olivia, I'm not angry anymore," I said quietly, "but the man you want another chance from doesn't exist anymore." She began crying, insisting she had ended all contact with her ex months earlier and finally understood what she had thrown away. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I replied, "You asked for a second chance after losing me. I asked for loyalty before losing us." The line fell silent. She finally understood that regret and reconciliation are not the same thing. Some decisions change lives long before the consequences fully appear. Olivia asked if we could meet one last time before I made my final decision out of respect for what we had once hoped to build. I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe where we had celebrated our engagement years earlier. She looked exhausted, carrying far more regret than confidence. "I wish I could go back to those 2 weeks," she whispered. I smiled sadly. "So do I." She reached across the table, but I gently pulled my hand away. The problem wasn't that I couldn't forgive her. It was that I could no longer rebuild the trust our marriage required. Before leaving the cafe, Olivia asked whether there was anything she could have done differently after the affair to save us. I answered honestly. The time to save us wasn't after betrayal. It was before it happened. Tears filled her eyes because she knew I was right. Some mistakes can be repaired with honesty and effort. Others permanently change how 2 people see each other. Walking away that afternoon wasn't about punishing her. It was about accepting that love without trust eventually becomes a memory instead of a future. That truth was painful for both of us to accept. Years later, mutual friends occasionally mentioned that Olivia still regretted the choices she had made during those first weeks of our marriage. Hearing those updates brought me neither satisfaction nor anger. By then, my life had moved forward. I had built a peaceful future, surrounded myself with people who valued honesty, and learned that self-respect often requires difficult decisions. Looking back, I realized I never lost my marriage because of one weekend alone. I lost at the moment the promises we made at the altar stopped meaning the same thing to both of us. Everything afterwards simply confirmed that truth. Today, when people ask how I managed to move on after such a painful beginning to marriage, I give the same answer every time. Healing didn't begin when the divorce was finalized. It began the day I stopped waiting for someone else to become the person I needed them to be. Olivia begged for a second chance months later, but by then I had already chosen a different direction. Sometimes the hardest goodbye is also the healthiest one, not because love disappears, but because self-respect finally becomes stronger than the hope that someone who broke your trust will suddenly become.